Hey guys, welcome to Fishing with Gary Senft. Today we're not fishing, but we're up here at Bubbling Ponds Fish Hatchery, State Fish Hatchery. And I have Andy Clark from the Arizona Game and Fish Department here. And I want to ask him some questions. He's very knowledgeable about what's happening to our lakes in the golden algae. And ask some different questions about that, Andy.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll start with Apache Lake. The guys have been up there working hard.
Yeah, we've been monitoring the water quality up there. As everybody's seen, you know, we're losing, you know, fish here and there. Last summer we had a pretty good kill up there, and so you know, the golden algae is back. It's been killing shad and a few bass, and it's in you know, higher concentrations. So you know, why, right? I mean, why this year, why last year? A lot has to do with the lower water levels, drought, whatever you want to call it. I don't like to call it drought because we're in Arizona, it's a desert. You know, this is more of the normal, and we get used to those wet years, but you know, in effect, those reservoirs are lower than they've been in a lot of years, consistently lower.
Right.
So that tends to concentrate the conductivity or the salts in that water, and it drives the conductivity up. So to give you an idea, the baseline for Apache in the 80s was right around 900 to 1,000. And the measurement is irrelevant, but it's microsiemens or milligrams per liter, whatever you want to call it, but it's around 1,000. Right now, the mean has been somewhere around 1,800. Oh, so wow. Golden algae, one of the things that favors golden algae is that higher salinity, that higher conductivity. So as a normal kind of baseline, those lakes have been creeping up with the continued dry conditions we've had over the last 10, 15, even 20 years. And so those conditions have improved for golden algae. So we're starting to see them more and more. You're starting to see more and more outbreaks of it. They're all over the valley, right? The community fishing waters, right, and the, you know, those types of things. And that the water all comes from that Salt River system, right? So that water is all getting down into there. So we're getting better conditions for golden algae.
From what I'm understanding about our droughts and the conditions of the lake staying the same level and stuff, so the rainfall, if we're getting a lot of rain, that brings down the golden algae.
That's right. That's right.
We're not going to have it.
That's right.
So that's pretty neat. How deep does this golden algae go in a clear, like Apache Lake? Let's use Apache Lake. How far down does that go? And how deep, if the fish are real deep, 30, 40, 50 feet,
right,
does it affect them?
Yeah, typically most of the golden algae stays up in what we call the photic zone, right? They are algae. They produce their own food from the sun, right, from photosynthesis. So they try to stay in that zone where the sun is getting to them and they can produce their own energy. Now, with the quagga mussels that have come in and all that kind of stuff, I kind of thought to myself, well, maybe they're deeper now. But there's some recent research, a Baylor study out of Texas, Baylor University in 2011 found that the toxin that golden algae produce is somewhat, it breaks down in bright sunlight. So, you know, I think maybe there's a zone there where those golden algae are making the toxin, where the conditions are right, and those fish are in that zone and the sunlight's not breaking it down. That's where it's really kind of making the most difference. This is my theory. So, you know, maybe past 30 feet or so, there's not as much, but I don't think anybody really understands how the primicin, that's the toxin that they produce, how that falls out. It's produced at 20 feet where the algae is, but does it mix? Does it go? These are things we just don't have a good understanding. So I would like to tell you that it's going to be held to, you know, shallower water, but I don't think we know that. We don't know that for sure. So I think fish find zones, deeper zones, where they can get away from most of that toxin, and I think that's where they persist, you know, especially during those blooms.
A long time ago, 20 years, 30 years, we never had golden algae. Yeah. So did this come in from another state? Because you were kind of touching on in 1983, Texas started getting golden algae.
That's right.
And then tell us about, and that's true. So what year did we lose all those fish at Apache, Canyon and Saguaro?
Yeah, we
When that
officially
started?
documented them in 2006.
Okay.
And we had some pretty bad kills in 2007, 6, 7, you know. But, you know, it's interesting, just because it wasn't killing doesn't mean it wasn't there. So I think we want to say that it's new, and maybe we didn't get it till around 2000, 2001, but we just don't know. And you know, you have to think that the 70s and 80s were two of the wettest decades on record, going back to the 1900s. So you know, that water, that dilution essentially kept those conductivities low, and it may have been around but just never bloomed. So I don't know for sure. I would like to say that we just got it, you know, and somebody brought it in on a boat or whatever, but we just don't know. We don't know.
So it didn't come in by the fire. Like
Right.
everybody's talking about the
No.
big fires we had up in Heber and
Yeah.
Overgard. It did not come from all that slurry stuff dumped into
No.
Roosevelt, because it all went into Roosevelt. Well, we didn't ever get golden algae in Roosevelt
That's right. That's
at
right.
all.
That's right.
So it wasn't from that.
So that theory doesn't hold water,
Okay.
you know, pun intended. So, you know, really it just had to do with when the forests are burning, we're in a drought. You know,
Oh, yeah.
we don't have as much water in those reservoirs. So there was a coincidence there where we had a huge, you know, wildfire, catastrophic wildfire, the Rodeo Chetaskai, and then others after that. But that's just saying we don't have a lot of snowpack, and that snowpack is what's driving this.
Right.
We have good snow years. The golden algae is not an issue. It just keeps those conductivities down. The water temperatures are you know, down a little bit, and that removes their need to just bloom. So.
What can the anglers do, since we're at the bass fishermen and boating and stuff and fishing and stuff, the average guy do to help control the golden algae and the mussels?
Yeah, great question. So really, the best thing an angler can do, or any boater for that matter, is do the clean, drain, and dry. We've promoted that for quagga mussels, but it really holds true for any kind of aquatic invasive species. If you're pulling the plug on your boat, draining your live well, making sure you don't have weeds and other you know, debris on your boat or even on your trailer, and then just not jumping from one water to the other, you know, within 24, 48 hours right away. Give it a little time. You know, we're getting into the hot time of year. Boy, you fish Bartlett, you know, one night, let it sit for a couple of days, and it's baked. I mean, that's enough, right? As long as everything's drying out, you're good. It's when you hold some bait in your live well and you jump to the next, what do you got, a tournament or whatever, you're really putting everybody at risk at moving. Who knows, maybe you're not moving golden algae or quagga mussels, but who knows what else you're moving. So that best policy is that clean, drain, and dry. Pull that plug. It's the law. You know, it's in statute now. If you're caught coming out of a lake with your plug in, you could be cited. And if you've got water in your live well, that's a citable offense. So we're really trying to cut down on, because we're losing, you know, thousands of dollars of fish every summer on these things, because we're going to have to eventually, if it keeps going the way, you know, we're going to have to go in and stock it like we did in
Right.
2009 and 10. You know,
have to donate
and,
again,
yeah,
and-
and these lakes they recover. You know, the threadfin shad come back really quick, but the bass, you start losing those 3 and 4 pounders, they don't come back that fast. And so, you know, think about that as you're a boater, as you're an angler. Just make sure everything's nice and dry and clean.
So another quick question that I'm hearing at our seminars or talking to people at the lake and stuff is, why can't the Game and Fish do something about this to explain what it takes to do this to get rid of golden algae?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a really complex issue because, you know, for sure the lakes like Apache Lake, that's so big, and I forget the acreage on it, you know, the gallons, how many millions of gallons, but to do, you know, some of the urban lakes we can treat with a herbicide and knock those algae populations, but it kills everything. And we're talking about a food web here. We're talking about blue-green algae, green algae, golden algae. And all the phytoplankton and other things, the zooplankters that go with that food web. You start poisoning that, you start knocking that down, it kind of resets everything, and then the golden algae can kind of come back with the rest of it and recolonize, and that's what it does. So every once in a while you got to hit it with that herbicide, you know, and knock it down, and then we can stock again. But in those big reservoirs, we have no hope of treating it with anything like that. So the best thing we can do is keep monitoring it, keep studying it, keep trying to understand what that dynamic is. And during drought years like this, we may just have to, make sure we've got enough funding, enough resources to restock these lakes, and just hope they don't, completely kill, because those are the bad ones.
Yeah, we've got such a potential. We don't have a lot of lakes here in Arizona, big bass lakes and stuff. We got Roosevelt, and that's turning into a great big bass lake. We have Apache, which we lost a lot of fish last year, and already this year.
Right.
Canyon Lake has already experienced fish kill.
Right.
Not a major one, but different parts of the lake have experienced a fish kill.
Right.
Saguaro, the guys aren't talking about seeing any dead bass, a few dead shad and stuff like that, but the fish just aren't biting.
Yeah.
And they always are biting there.
So that's a good segue into something I was thinking about, how that the permacin is the toxin, and the way that toxin works is it starts to break down the tissues around the gills, so it's really effective on gill breathing animals. So what it does is it just kind of peels away those layers. So if the edge of my hand is the first layer on a gill, it just kind of peels that layering off and makes it bleed inside, and it just gradually works it back to where that fish just doesn't feel like it's getting enough oxygen. So it'll kind of go to where it'll feel better, and so it's not thinking about feeding. I mean, it's just surviving at that point when it's got cells sloughing off on its gills because of this toxin. So it's a process. So you might see fish get a little bit sick, they're not feeling too well, they shut off, and then they try to move away from it, and then 3 days later, if the toxin's still acute, then they may start dying. So we're talking bigger fish. Now the shad, they got a lot smaller gill structures, they die faster.
Is that why the shad always die first?
They do.
There's a good example, guys, right there.
Yep. So it really is just that layering, that permacin starts to wear down those layers in the gills, and it's on that molecular level, deep down, and it's bleeding inside of there, and it just sloughs that off, and they just can't process oxygen. So it takes them some time, to die. And it's kind of brutal, but to think about it that way. But that's kind of why you see them, they're a little lethargic, they're kind of hanging out, they're kind of laying at the bottom or whatever, and they're trying to find, sweeter water, but they're not dead yet. And then if they can get a little bit sweeter water, or you can take them out of the water and put them in fresh water, they recover. They come right back, because those gills replenish, they regrow cells, and they're fine.
So do you think that's why the fish all head up towards the dams?
You bet.
Because all that water is being flushed from Roosevelt, then it's flushed from Apache, then it's flushed from Canyon, and it's Saguaro, and then Saguaro is releasing it down into our salt river.
Right.
And so it's just a process of all this stuff working.
Exactly.
And I think the public needed to know this. All the fishermen that are coming to Matt's and my seminars at the Bass Pro Shop, the people I am at the lake with, Dave and I really appreciate that you guys spend that time to come out here, you and Sarah, and talk to us. And I hope that all you guys out there, watch this and listen to what he said, because he's the one that knows, one of the ones that knows, and he talks to the biologist back at the main office. So now you have it. So tell your friends if they want to hear how this golden algae works and how it tears down the fish's gills and how they suffocate and stuff like that. There's no way to treat this. Our reservoirs are just so big. They don't have enough money to do this.
Right.
So, with that, I don't think there's anything else we can talk about. We covered it all.
Hope it rains a little bit and and we get some, some monsoonal action that'll bring some fresh water in some of these tributaries on those. Those fish will get into that, and maybe they make it through this summer, and then maybe we get a better winter. So that's really all we can do, and maybe talk about more resources for fish hatcheries and coming up with more places to raise bass and raise catfish and bluegill, so that when we get these bad kills, we can replenish what we have. I think that's going to be really important moving forward.
Yeah, I know you have a lot, and you guys have been talking about all the plans you have for bubbling ponds and stuff for the warm water, and of course we have Page Springs down below us for the trout and all that activity. But boy, it sounds like you guys are busy. When I was in your office the last week or 2 weeks ago. It was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
look at all these people writing and doing all kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
we're working.
God.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing. We're state government. We're trying to be as efficient as we can. Our governor's given us that challenge. We're trying the best we can to make the best of what we have and make things happen.
So it's been a pleasure, to finally see what you guys are doing. It's always been the other way, and us bass guys are always wondering, well, what are we going to do about the bass and stuff? Well, now you have it, guys. You have what the game and fish are actually having plans and what they're going to do to build some of our lakes to trophy big bass lakes. So thank you for tuning in, Fishing with Gary Senft, and we'll see you on the water on our next show.